folks. Welcome back to the Woods Paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey, where we explore the unknown and make the paranormal normal. So today we're diving into a fascinating conversation with the Bigfoot book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot by Maxim Furek. So he's going to be talking about ancient legends, modern encounters, interdimensional theories, and what it means if there's more than one type of Bigfoot out there, which I actually believe. Without further ado, let's welcome our new guest, Maxim, onto the podcast with us. Welcome.
Matt, thanks so much for having me on Deep Woods Paranormal, and I'm looking forward to having a nice chat about the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. So thanks so much for the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you coming on because, as you know, I'm a huge Bigfoot. Well, you may not know, but as people know, I'm a huge Bigfoot enthusiast. I've had my own encounters, so I've had multiple encounters with them. And the more I research them, the more questions I have. So it's always interesting to talk to somebody that is in your line of field where you're basically doing, a lot of stuff in the background, looking for where do they come from? What are they? Are there multiple types of Bigfoot? Are they some kind of humanoid, and stuff like that? And that's kind of what your book gets into. If you want to go ahead and give us a little bit more detail about your book, I'd really like to hear about it.
Yeah, it's called The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. It's published by Hangar One. They're the folks that gave us Monster Quest, Doug and Alex Hychek out there in Minnesota. But the book, with the book, I tried to do this. I tried to go a little bit further and try to answer the question, if it's not flesh and blood, what is it? So I took a look at all the theories from people like Jeff Meldrum and, so many of the other, cryptozoologists to take a look at what Bigfoot might be. And again, I'm not saying that it's not flesh and blood, but I'll say this: we've had plenty of time to look for positive proof, and we haven't found any yet. And what I'm talking about, man, I'm talking about a carcass, bones, DNA, something that would satisfy the scientific community. Now, having said that, we haven't found that as of yet. But what we do have is we have a collection of what I think Alan Hynek would have called high strangeness. So we have all these elements of high strangeness, including eyewitness sightings, sometimes numerous people seeing the same cryptid. We have the hoots, the smells, always the horrible fecal matter, wet dog, rotten egg smell, that sulfur smell. So that tends to accompany the Bigfoot sightings. The wood structures, the knocks, the, things like that. So Taken collectively, there's something there that we really need to go and take a look at. So I think there's something substantial. What it is, we don't know. And that's what my book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, Bigfoot is about. I say, if it's not flesh and blood, what is it? So we have to take a look at some of the theories, and there's numerous theories. Numerous people have claimed that Bigfoot may actually be Gigantopithecus, the largest ape that ever walked the earth. It looks like an orangutan. Maybe Neanderthal, closely related to human beings. Homo sapiens and Homo erectus mated with Neanderthal, and some of us do have Neanderthal DNA, so that's no big thing. The Australopithecus, back in Ethiopia, they discovered Lucy, which is man's earliest ancestor. So again, when you take a look at Australopithecus and Gigantopithecus, Neanderthal, the collection of missing links, take a look at those that possibly the answer may be there. The answer may possibly be there. So that's where we're looking. I subscribe to what I call, and I guess I'm giving you this interview like in 5 minutes, but I believe that Bigfoot, as well as UAPs and flying saucers, are interdimensional. And I follow in the model of Jacques Vallée, who believes the same thing. And Vallée believed that with extraterrestrials, he thought it was just too amateurish, too sophomoric to believe that these advanced technologies, were able to go, trillions of light years from A to planet Earth. And he said there had to be another way. And so he talked about Einstein and Rosen's bridge theory, now called the wormhole theory, that what you do is you just take that space-time continuum, which is malleable, and you bend it, and then you just punch holes through the two things and go through that. So you go through A to exit from B, and that would take microseconds rather than going from planet Alpha, Omega, to the planet Earth. So Jacques Vallée's theory and Einstein-Rosen's theories, they are just that. They're hypotheses, but it's the best thing we have to work with at this point. Again, if we don't have a carcass and DNA that would satisfy the scientific community, then what do we have? So you take a look at the different hypotheses and take a look at the ones that may make the most sense. Certainly, I think that the interdimensional makes more sense than, say, mass hallucinations or Jung's collective unconsciousness. Although I do believe that we're connected with our ancestors, through DNA all the way, back to our ancestors. But I believe the interdimensional theory is the one that seems to explain this mystery to me the best. Again, not scientifically proven, because we don't have the data as of yet, but I think we're on the right track if we follow in that line. And I'll say this too. I know that years ago, when I started to talk about this, there was a lot of pushback. But I'll say this, in the last several years, I think the Sasquatch community has really thought this thing through. And I think that they're not as hardcore and, they're not as dogmatic as they were. I think that they're open to other theories, other, woo theories. The woo-woo being the crazy stuff that guys like me talk about. So, I think that there's it's not just black and white. It's not just flesh and bones. It's not just interdimensional, but there's all the other things, all the shades of gray there that these researchers are coming up with and finding. So, I don't know. I don't know what the truth is, but I just have some thoughts, my own thoughts of what they might be. The Bigfoot.
Yeah. So the more I research I do into Bigfoot, like I said, the more questions I have. I mean, I've come across, I've met a lot of military personnel out of nowhere, usually in the middle of nowhere, like a forest or whatever, and they come up to me and they're giving me information. Some of it I can't really talk about, but they're like, okay, you do know there's a special team that hunts cryptids, not just Bigfoot, but Dogman and other things. And they've told me that the reason there's no bodies is basically because they bury their dead, supposedly. I don't know if that's true or not, again. Well, just a theory.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Or recently, somebody actually just on Facebook was saying that they eat their dead, which I don't know if that's true or not either. Also, they're saying that and again, these are all just theories. Some people theorize that these tree structures you're finding are possibly graves too. Like when they have the upside down trees, they're marking an area where maybe an elder is buried. I've followed Bigfoots for miles, and they've never disappeared on me. I've never had a Bigfoot disappear on me. But that's not to say that hasn't happened. I know there's a lot of videos out there where you see them walk behind a tree and then disappear. I know there's theories that trees are possibly portals, some kind of portal. Back in Indian days, they believed that everything had a spirit, and that the Sasquatch could basically just walk into a tree and disappear. There's videos, and again, these might be, they might be fake, but you see a Bigfoot like peer out of the side of a tree, and you're like, where's the other side of that thing? That thing's 4 or 5 feet wide, and that tree's 2 feet wide. Where's the rest of this damn thing? So who knows at this point in time? Somebody told me that we're the aliens and we got dropped here by UFOs or by an alien species, and Bigfoots were already here, and Bigfoots live underground. And again, these are all just theories, just kind of like you were talking about. Who knows what's real and what's not? It seems like, what is your take on the government basically being involved with this?
Yeah, well, whenever the government gets involved in things, things get pretty much mucked up. But I heard theories that Sasquatch the Sasquatch habitat is one where there's a lot of resources, a lot of whether it's I don't know, oil or lumber or whatever. But that's one reason that they're trying to track Bigfoot and maybe keep them out of certain areas that have a lot of value. I don't know, but the one thing that's really interesting is that when we first heard the name Bigfoot, the Humboldt Times in Northern California had an article about California's abominable snowman. And when that came out, and I want to say that it was 65. I may be wrong.
Thereabouts.
Okay. So that was the first time that the term Bigfoot hit the papers, and what happened was all of a sudden, America, the world, knew about Bigfoot. It hit the wire services, and that small little paper in Northern California, the Humboldt Times, started to get thousands of letters from people, readers, that said that, yes, I believe in the California abominable snowman. I believe that Bigfoot exists, and I too have seen Bigfoot. So 65, this was the shot heard around the world, but that was for us white folks. We failed to realize that in the coastal peoples in British Columbia and in northern Canada had been talking about a thing called Sasquatch or Bigfoot for thousands of years. And we know about this through oral storytelling, through totem poles, through the hieroglyphics on the caves. But what you just said earlier, Matt, is true, that they believe that Bigfoot had powers, that Bigfoot was a spiritual creature, that it protected the environment, and to see a Bigfoot was an honorable thing, a sacred thing to see one. But they talked about how Sasquatch could shapeshift into different things like rocks and trees, and change their shape. So they were very much into that. But again, the thing that we have to realize is that these accounts of hairy hominids, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them, have been around in North America for thousands of years. So we know that. The theory about Gigantopithecus is that it crossed from Asia to North America on the Bering Strait when that was intact. Now it's not, but that was an easy way to get there. So the theories, make sense. But again, the question is this, does Gigantopithecus still exist, or Neanderthal, or any of these missing links? So we have to look there. And but a lot of these prominent cryptozoologists like Jeff Meldrum believe that that Bigfoot was. I'm gonna just let that go. We're gonna ignore that. Okay. So now I'm having computer problems, and my computer guy was trying to.
No worries.
We'll take care of that later. Okay. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting information. I know the one thing was with the Patterson-Gimlin film that seems to be the Holy Grail. That's the Bible. And when that came out, and it was scrutinized sort of like the Kennedy assassination film, the Zapruder film. So the Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967 was scrutinized by so many people. And even today, it is, they speed it up, they slow it down, they digitize it, they colorize it, they do everything they can to take a look at it and prove that it's a fake. Most people believe that it's authentic, that it's not a man in a monkey suit, not a man in a latex suit, but an actual humanoid. Here's the thing. When that film came out, there was a paleontologist, John Napier. He was from Great Britain, and he was in charge of the Smithsonian Institute. And he received a copy of this film. Now, the Patterson-Gimlin film is only, 58 seconds long. He was there with some of his colleagues and his Russian counterparts. The Russians seemed to believe in abominable snowmen, or almas as they call it, more so I believe than Western scientists. But when John Napier looked at this film, he said no, had to be a fake. And the reason he said that was because the Patterson-Gimlin film had this cryptid that had the let me take this back. He took a look at that, and he thought that it was fake because the upper body was like an ape and the bottom was like a hominid. So he just thought that Patterson-Gimlin just threw together two basic characteristics of a Bigfoot and made this film. So he didn't believe it. A couple of years later, these guys over in Ethiopia were searching for fossils, and they found Lucy, that is Australopithecus, that's man's earliest ancestor. They named it Lucy after the Beatles' Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. They got drunk that night listening to the Beatles and celebrating their big thing. Lucy was only 3.5 foot tall, but they found this in the when John Napier heard about this, and again, this was just a couple of years after he had seen the actual film. He said, wait a second, I made a mistake. He said, this film is accurate. And he said that it was accurate because Lucy, Australopithecus, had the upper body of an ape, long arms to climb trees, and then had the long legs, and was a hominid, could bipedal, could walk on 2 feet, not crawl on all fours, and not brachiate like an ape. So Napier realized that Lucy, Australopithecus, had the same characteristics of the Patterson-Gimlin film. So it was an example of science coming around full circle and validating, one theory or a disbelief in one theory. So that, to me, is one of the most exciting things about, the Sasquatchery. Certainly the Patterson-Gimlin film, to this day, holds its own, and it's pretty much like equivalent to the 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac video that the pilots shot. I mean, and again, you could scrutinize that all you want, but I mean, it's there, it hovers, goes back and forth, and then it goes underwater. So again, the Pentagon started to call these things UAPs, but unidentified aerial phenomenon, and then unidentified anomalous phenomenon, because these things weren't just aerial, they were going under the water. So there's a lot of things happening, it's happening fast, so we had that thing about the Atlas, the 31 Atlas, this big asteroid was coming alongside of us, coming from outside of our solar system, and that's only happened, I think, 2 other times. But this one was bigger and faster, and already people were saying it was guided by alien intelligence. It was being guided by a higher intelligence, and then NASA and a bunch of other people said, no, it's not. It started to break up. But this thing was bigger and faster than anything we've seen before. But for a while there, people were getting a little bit antsy.
Right,
apprehensive about what it might have been. So,
yeah, and the paranormal right now it's exploding. The paranormal activity is just exploding around the world. One thing that people don't realize is that there's Bigfoots reported on almost every continent. I mean, not necessarily Bigfoot, but they have different names for them all over. You have that Balmo snowman. You have what is it called? Oran Pende. I'm mispronouncing that probably, in Australia. I mean, Russia has their own. Everywhere has their own. I mean, even England is now reporting some kind of bipedal hairy beast, and stuff like that. And Europe is reporting those too up in the mountains. So, I mean, there must be something to this. I mean, I've had my own encounters with them. What I've seen, I've had 30 or 40 encounters with Bigfoot where I could say that couldn't be anything else but a Bigfoot. What I would tell people is that you have to have an encounter, whatever it is, paranormally wise, where you can say that couldn't be anything else but. And I mean, it could be a ghost or a UFO or whatever. It has to be, you have to be able to totally describe it without anybody being able to pull your your story apart, essentially. But anyways, you were saying?
When you had your sightings, how long were they? Were the sightings of like just seconds or minutes or what?
Some of them were seconds, some of them were minutes, some were longer than I wanted to. I used to have a friend named Joe. I used to go up to his area up in East Texas, and I've had multiple people go with me to investigate up there, daytime, nighttime sightings. literally the Bigfoots would come to the edge of the forest. You wouldn't be able to see them until they moved, and they'd walk literally out of the forest because the forest tree line it wasn't dark, but it was just dark. You couldn't see you could see the woods, but you couldn't make out anything unless it moved. Everything was silhouetted down there. So they would literally come out and they would stand there, all different shapes and sizes, because Bigfoots are all different shapes and sizes. They're like humans. Some are huge, some are small, some are, in between. I've seen one my size. I've seen multiple my size. I'm guessing they're juveniles. But anyways, 6 different witnesses were actually skeptics, and they all became believers.
Yeah, right.
I saw one literally walk out of the forest, walk across the road back into the forest, and disappear. And she was talking a million miles an hour. I'm like, hold on, slow down. Did you have your camera on? No, I forgot. I was just so shocked by what I saw. Like, you got to record it, especially a daytime sighting.
Yeah.
But
amazing. One of our Bigfoot guys back in Western Pennsylvania, this Bill Rigby, he claims that he saw a Bigfoot at 15 foot and got PTSD from it. So.
Oh yeah, no. I'll tell you this story real quick because we're running out of time. Joe and I were sitting. His property was like a football field, basically 55 acres up in the Sabine National Forest, and the front, 20 yards of his property basically were just, he had cleared everything, but the back part, the trees, his family had owned this property since before the Civil War, and they owned, I don't know, 100,000 acres or something like that, and he got this patch of land from his ancestors. Anyways, he calls me and, hey, you got to come up here and check this place out, blah blah blah. We spent 4 years researching his property, and we have a documentary on our YouTube channel. We have a couple different documentaries, but literally we're sitting on a bench, and I didn't have a camera available. We had just stopped, and I believe this is probably the alpha male or whatever you want to call it. And I'm looking up, and he had 2 logging roads. His property was between 2 logging roads, and they went through the middle of his property. And I'm looking up this road. In between, everything else was basically big, tall, thick forest in the middle of his property. But he has 2 areas on both sides of his property that were basically non-forest. It was just these, like a single lane highway, but it's a dirt road. Probably about 15, 20 feet across on each side, because he wanted this, a way to get off his property in case the front of his property got blocked or something. Anyways, sitting there at a bench, Joe's sitting to my right, and I'm looking up the road. I'm going, wait, where'd that tree come from? And I'm looking at this thing, and it just looks like a tree. And so I go, Joe, is there supposed to be a tree up there? He's like, no. And I said, just carefully, slowly turn and look. I never took my eyes off it. And so I had a daytime binocular. And so I grabbed it, and I started zooming in. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's literally a Bigfoot caught like this, like the Patterson Gimlin film. Turns sideways. I mean, their upper body, it doesn't seem like they can turn their heads very far. But its head is looking straight at me, shoulders facing me, arms spread across. Black, solid black. Probably at least 15 feet tall. I think we measured one taller than that at his property, because we saw another one behind one of his blind that was about 12 feet tall, and the belly button was about 12 feet up. Anyway, so long story short, I'm sitting there looking at this thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's standing there. And he used to tell me this story, and not all the different colors, the tan, the black, the brown, and the red are different sizes and shapes. They have different facial features. They just look different from each other. You can basically look at like gorillas, orangutans, and whatever other family of species you want for apes, but they all kind of resemble different apes. Anyways, so I started zooming in on the face. I can see around the lips, and it's just flat. It's just flat. It looks like a monkey's face, hair up. And so he told me that these, some of them look like they're wearing sunglasses. And so I start going in on the eye, and the eye's got to be, it's got to be huge. It's got to be the size of a baseball. And I'm looking at the eye, and I can clearly see it. It's the thing that was only about 100 feet away, and I had, binoculars that could see that far easily. And I'm looking at the eye, and the pupil's actually white. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And the pupil was actually black, and the eyeball was actually white. I couldn't see anything like the pupil or anything like that. I just saw black and then white in the middle. I'm like, what is that? And so I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm pretty sure they have some kind of bioluminescence under their eyes. And so I'm looking at this, I'm going, well, what the hell? I'm describing it. He's just shaking his head. He's like, yep, That's exactly what I've seen. But literally, I turned back to him for a split second, and this thing was like one foot was on one side of the road, the other foot was on the other side of the road. So 15-foot gap. I mean,
Yeah.
big. And literally gone in seconds. I mean, I just turned to him, set the binocular down, and I was going to give it to him so he could take a look, and it was gone. Mm-hmm. So it's like, where the hell did that thing go? But yeah, he literally lived in the middle of Bigfoot's living room. I mean, it was just daytime, nighttime.
Able to get casts of that?
Unfortunately, it was too dry. Okay. Normally it rains like crazy up there. We tried to cast a 26-inch footprint one day. They had basically logged a lot of his property because it hit bark beetles, and we were afraid the lightning hits the trees up there. I mean, the zigzag lightning, it's insane. We heard one explode one night. It scared the living crap out of us. We both ran out there in the pouring rain. We're like, is everything on fire? But anyways, yeah, we tried to cast it, but it was actually in the water still, so we couldn't actually cast it. But I mean, I have a size 13 wide. I took 2+ of my shoes to basically measure this thing, and that thing's foot was, I don't know, at the heel 8-9 inches wide. So I mean, that just tells you how big this thing was, and you could see the ridging. And I took a picture of it. I don't know where it went to, but we had trap cams up there. We have hundreds of thousands of videos and pictures from his property. In fact, we actually got one on camera one day when we were up there, and that actually is on our YouTube channel on the very end of the video. But yeah, it's just an easy place.
Foot casting are some of the best evidence that we have, and Jeff Meldrum had one of the best collections. I mean, I don't know who has it now since he passed, but it's amazing things. I mean, when you look at that, like you said, a large foot bigger than a man or a bear, bigger than an ape, and the stride, nothing that we could do. So yeah, there's something there. You know what it is. I mean, I wish we could find out. You know, real.
Yeah, I wish he was still alive. There were so many people now that I've met that are of your caliber that I would have loved to have taken up there, so you guys could help us with the research. But unfortunately, I don't know what his family did with the property. They're all afraid of his property.
Yeah, so. I had a chance to meet him. He was, I'm a snowbird. I spend winters in Florida. And Jeff was there at the Ocala Bigfoot Expo a couple years ago. So he did a presentation. He said that he was the one that is the last to get invited to the high table. That's because we're scientifically minded. But he was so good. And then I had a chance to shake his hand and chat with him. And they were just, it was just a great thing. But just a nice guy. And then he has been published by Hanger One. They're the people that do my Lost Tribes of Bigfoot that I'm showing.
Cool.
Right there. Yeah. So, Doug Hychek, the CEO, was really torn when Jeff passed. So they were good. They were really good friends.
Yeah, I unfortunately never got to meet him. I really wanted to meet him so bad, but I never got a chance to. I really wish I would have.
Yeah. He was at the top of the game. He was the pioneer and the ambassador. I mean, along with Lauren Coleman.
Yeah.
The Four Horsemen of Sasquatchery, but there's not that many people there that are, that are true. I mean, true and genuine. There's some of the guys out there that are questionable about some of the things that they say and done. But Jeff Meldrum and I think Lauren Coleman are, for real. So at least we have those guys.
Exactly. All right, so we have a few minutes left. Why don't you go ahead and wrap up with your final thoughts? Talk about your book a little bit more.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in, getting a copy of the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, or maybe an autographed copy, please check me out on my website. It's www.maximfurek.com. That's MAXIMFUREK. And check out the website, and there's links there to look at the books and all that. But I would say this, that if you did get a book, please be so kind as to put a review on Amazon, because we really need that. And I would say this too, please support your local libraries and bookstores and your authors and your local podcast. We need your help. We need your support. We're not corporate America. and we're just the little Davids trying to fend off the Goliath. So all the help we could get from America, from our fans and supporters would be great. So thank you for that.
All right. Well, Maxim Furker, his book will be linked in the description, guys, so you guys can go check it out. Please go buy his book. I'm going to check it out as well, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
I can